Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Now in today's video, as you can tell by what we've got here on my desk today, we're going to be doing yet another project involving the $5 Windows 98 PC. But this one is going to be a little bit different because we're not going to be installing a version of Windows or even Linux on this computer. We're going to be installing ReactOS. Now, ReactOS I did a video on a couple years ago on this channel, and it's a very interesting and unique operating system because what it is a OS that is intended to be binary compatible with Windows without actually being derived from Windows. So it's not using any of like the Windows source code, it's not using anything developed by Microsoft. This is an independent project that is developed from the ground up to be not based on Windows but be binary compatible with the programs and device drivers for Windows, or at least some of them. And ReactOS basically traces its origins back to another project called FreeWin95. Which basically had the same goal as ReactOS, but was just trying to create a free and open source clone of Windows 95. So ReactOS kind of evolved from that. And this has been in development since the late 1990s. I believe 1998 was the first publicly available release of ReactOS. But even though it's been in development since the 90s, this is still in alpha. This is still an alpha release of ReactOS. This specific version right here is 0.4.12. And we're going to be installing it on the Windows 98 PC and seeing how it performs. This machine does meet the minimum system requirements to run this build, so I don't think we're going to have any problem installing it. So we're going to start off and we're going to put this disk into the DVD drive, the newly installed DVD drive on this system. And you can see that we do have disk management open right here, and what we're going to try to do is to kind of make this a little bit more interesting is we're going to try to install ReactOS alongside both Windows Vista and Windows 7. Yes, I've got Vista and 7 on this computer. We're going to be trying to install ReactOS alongside them and basically triple boot this computer. Now this could pose a little bit of a challenge for us because I have read that some of the earlier versions of ReactOS did not really play nicely with other partitions with other operating systems installed on them. But going over the changelog for this project, I was actually able to verify that one of the earlier versions does specifically mention in the changelog that improvements to dual booting was made. So we're going to see if this version allows us to install it alongside Vista and Windows 7. Before we do that, though, let's actually run the welcome.exe file that is on the CD, and we can actually take a look at it. And you'll see that it actually comes up in a very Windows 2000-like window here. This is actually very similar to the Windows 2000 welcome window, which looks like this, that you see when you first load into Windows 2000 after you finish installing it. And this OS is also extremely lightweight. It only needs 500 megabytes of hard drive space and 96 megabytes of RAM. This computer, even in its original configuration before I did those upgrades to it, met those minimum system requirements. So without any further ado, we're going to actually restart because you can't actually do it from this menu here. We're going to restart the computer and boot off of this CD. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So we're going to press any key to boot from the ReactOS medium, as you can see there. And you guys could probably see that from some of those files that it was loading right there, NTOS kernel, hal.dll, those are Windows files. And you can see right here, this looks very similar to like a Windows XP setup process, and that is again by design. It is basically mimicking Windows without actually deriving any source code from it, which is just super cool. I mean, I think this is a really cool project. So we're going to go ahead and choose our language here, which is English US. We're going to press enter to install or upgrade ReactOS. And it's giving you a kind of message saying that it's in alpha stage, meaning that it is not feature complete. This is definitely not feature complete. And it's going to show us our current device settings. It's figured out what computer display, keyboard, and keyboard layout we have. We're just going to accept that. And you can see that it's recognized our 75 gigabyte hard disk with 2 partitions, both NTFS partitions. And down here we have this unpartitioned space, which we're going to install on. So we're going to press enter to install. And so right here it says that the current system partition of your computer is the C drive, which is an NTFS partition that's 37 gigabytes in size. It uses a format that is not supported by ReactOS. In order to successfully install ReactOS, the setup program must change the current system partition to a new one. So it's going to change the system partition to the FAT32 partition, which it's going to call the E drive. Now, you guys were probably able to see before that it's recognizing the C drive and the D drive as the two partitions that we already had installed. Now, Windows Vista and Windows 7 recognize this as the C drive for Vista and the E drive for Windows 7. So ReactOS is calling the Windows 7 drive the D drive, and the E drive is going to be for ReactOS. So just kind of an interesting tidbit there. So we're going to just accept the change here. We're going to format the partition as the FAT file system, which, yes, ReactOS does not support the NTFS file system. You have to use the FAT or the BTRFS file system. We're just going to go with the FAT file system, do a quick format, and we're going to press enter to continue. And there we go. So now it's going to say where you want to install the ReactOS files. We're going to do in the ReactOS folder, and it's going to prepare to copy the files. And that is pretty much it. Alright, so the setup has just finished copying files. It has also just updated the system configuration. And now it's going to ask you what you want to do regarding the bootloader. We're just going to go with the very first option. We're going to remove the cd-rom as it says. And here we go. So because we actually chose ReactOS to install its bootloader, it's actually completely taken over the regular Windows bootloader. So we've got all of these ReactOS options, and then we have this unknown operating system down here, and I believe if we choose that... Alright, so unfortunately I think we may have actually screwed up the bootloader, because choosing unknown operating system does not actually do anything. The reason why that I chose to install ReactOS's bootloader is I did not think that the Windows bootloader would work well with ReactOS, but for now we're just going to load ReactOS and, you know, have it load up, and we'll see if we can... I mean, all the files are still going to be there. There's no... And yeah, you can see it's still got all the 3 files system, so maybe not. Okay, so the video driver failed to initialize. The system actually gave us a blue screen of death. So, yeah, we're gonna have to force shut down and restart because we literally cannot do anything from here. Alright, welcome back everybody. So it has been a couple of weeks since I recorded the last clip, and I wanted to kind of sum up what has happened since then. So you guys have probably seen in the last clip that we had a couple of issues actually getting the OS to boot because we were getting that error saying that it could not load the display driver properly. Now with the 98 PC itself, I have actually, since I recorded that last clip, have done a couple more OS installations on it. So we're basically abandoning the triple boot experiment, which is kind of unfortunate, but as you guys saw, we weren't really able to get that to work. Now, I was doing some research online and I saw a couple of forum posts, one of them suggesting to use the option when it asks you where you want to install the bootloader to only choose the install in the volume boot record option. I had chosen the master boot record and volume boot record option. So some people suggested that that would work, but then I also saw some posts saying that even doing that did not successfully allow them to dual boot. The other problem is that I actually was not able to successfully boot back into Windows Vista or Windows 7. The files were still there on the hard drive, at least when I tried to boot into ReactOS and it ran a check disk there. It said that it found all 3 volumes and 2 of them were NTFS. But you know, choosing that unknown operating system option on the ReactOS bootloader did not allow me to boot into Windows Vista or Windows 7. Now, I did try to boot off of a Windows setup CD and try to repair both the master boot record and the bootloader. The master boot record command, I believe, completed successfully, but the bootloader, when I was trying to repair that, it actually was saying that it could not find a Windows installation on the hard drive, so that was unfortunate. And this is, again, I mean, ReactOS is in alpha right now, so I would not recommend using this on your main computer, definitely, and especially dual booting it, because some people with older versions have reported actual data loss. So this is in alpha. That's why that we're doing it on a secondary computer where I'm not worried about losing any data. Or, you know, in my original video, I did this in a virtual machine. Now, as for the display driver error that we were getting with that blue screen of death, the reason we were getting that is because you can see here on the setup screen where it asks you to select your devices, and I did make a note of this when I was editing that previous clip. Now, ReactOS defaults to this VESA display, at least in my case here, this VESA display 800 by 600. Now, also, you guys may notice if you have a keen eye that we are now trying to install ReactOS ReactOS 0.4.13 release candidate. Yes, since I recorded that previous clip, ReactOS has released a new release candidate version of their next version, which is 0.4.13. If you go to their website, which their website has actually been redesigned and it actually looks kind of cool, they still have the final release of 0.4.12 available to download, but if you go to their SourceForge page, which I'll also have linked down below, you can actually download this release candidate, and who knows, by the time this video goes out there might even be a newer version. But now that we've got the VGA display selected, we're going to accept these settings, and this is our previous installation. We're going to delete that partition because we do want to do a clean install, and we're going to create a primary partition. We're going to install on that using the FAT file system and not BetterFS. Now, I initially thought that the reason why we were getting that error message is because there was a bug with the 0.4.12 release. What? Cabinet has no valid INF file. What? Yeah, so, okay, I know exactly why that we got that error message before. I have noticed that ever since I've installed this DVD drive in this computer has had, and this has happened with when I installed Windows Whistler, this has happened when I installed the Neptune build that I installed on this, and even during the massive Windows upgrade. After a while, the computer will actually stop reading data from this DVD drive, and during Windows setup, this has happened during Windows setup, it'll say, oh, setup can no longer read from the DVD drive, please make sure the Windows setup CD is inserted. So basically, I would have to cycle the CD tray, so eject it, and then, put the CD back in, and then press OK, and then it would start reading from it again. So I think that is a hardware problem with this DVD drive, because this did not happen with the previous CD drive that I had at all. You can see now that it's finished copying files, it is now working. So the reason why we got that error message is because I was sitting on the setup screen for a while and the CD drive wasn't active, so it eventually just stopped reading from it. So I think this is actually a hardware issue. Now this right here is with the multiple different bootloader options that we have. So since we only have ReactOS on this, I'm just going to go with the first option, which is install it to the master boot record and the volume boot record. And we're going to restart. Now hopefully we will be able to boot into ReactOS no problem. Now what I was saying before about the version, I initially thought that the reason we were getting that display error message is because we were using a version of ReactOS that had some sort of bug, because I actually saw a post from a guy saying that he was trying to install ReactOS 0412 in a virtual machine software, and he got the exact same error message, and it was posted like back in January or February. So I initially thought that, oh, it's just a bug with the OS itself. So I tried to kind of go back to multiple different versions, and I still got the exact same error message. So when I realized that the issue was, and yeah, you can see it's working totally fine now, but when I realized that the issue was not with the OS itself, but with the wrong display driver that I had selected, I then went back to the newest version as of this recording, which is the release candidates of 0.4.13, and you can see that it installs totally fine. We are booted in here to ReactOS. It is currently installing devices. We're going to agree to the license terms here, and the user locale and the keyboard layout are most likely going to be English US. Yep, so we're just going to accept both of those. We're going to type in our name. Let's just put in Michael here, and we're going to set our computer name as the 98 PC. Once again, we're not going to put an admin password. Now we do have a theme selector here. We don't actually see the previews of the themes. Here we go, now it's actually applying them. So we can't see the preview of the themes, but we can actually click on them to apply. So this is the latest theme, I guess is how you pronounce that. So this is how this one looks. Let's just go with this one for now. We'll click on next. You see we're actually, we're kind of running this in a low color mode. You could probably see that in the way that the window was displaying before. So we can probably change that once we, yeah, you can see that the actual ReactOS logo is not displaying 100% correctly. So we are running this in a pretty low color mode. We're going to go with our typical network settings and click on next. We're going to say it's not, and yeah, you can see that even things like, text boxes now with this theme applied are not actually showing up properly. The outlines for the buttons are not showing up, and yeah, so, but at least we're actually, yeah, you can see we got a couple of display issues going on with the progress bar here, but I'm glad we were actually able to get this booted up, so that is awesome. Alright, so the setup has successfully completed. It asks us to remove the CD from the drive, so we'll go ahead and do that, and it has a little restart timer here. We can just speed that up by clicking on finish here, And when we restart, we should be able to actually successfully boot into ReactOS. And you can see that this shutdown dialog right here looks very similar to the one in Windows 2000 and in XP if you have the welcome screen disabled. So yeah, that is again by design, and I'm probably going to say that a lot throughout this video. And yeah, you can see that the copyright date here is 96 to 2020. So yeah, 96 is when ReactOS's development officially started. Now, it appears that the system is actually frozen up here because I cannot move the mouse around. And yeah, it appears that the actual like animation with the bar going across is actually stopped. So we're going to go ahead and force shut down the system. So we'll go ahead and do that and actually restart. So also, just kind of briefly going over the bootloader here, you see we've actually got a ton of options here of how you can actually start ReactOS. There's a debug mode. I mean, there's like a ton of different settings here. So if you were having problems, and by the way, I did try to load ReactOS in the debug mode. I basically tried all of these options with that VESA display option selected, and it still gave the same result with that blue screen of death. So yes, the problem was 100% that I had the wrong display type selected. So we're going to boot into just the regular mode of ReactOS. So right here you can see it is installing devices, and it looks like we are at the same setup wizard again. Yeah, we're at the exact same setup wizard, so that's interesting. And yeah, we're not booted off the CD, so maybe it actually didn't finish. Maybe me force shutting it down actually screwed it up, but it did like say it was shutting down, like it said that it had finished. We'll leave this in, in the Pacific time zone. Let's actually go back to the classic theme, because that was the theme that was actually displaying the most correct. You can see that now we actually have like outlines on the buttons. They actually look like buttons. And yeah, check that out. When we actually move the window down to the ReactOS like version number down here and the version string, it actually kind of stickers itself to it, which is interesting. So yeah, there are a couple display issues going on. I mean, you can see we are running this in a pretty low color mode, but like I said, it's still good that we actually got it running. This is better than staring at that blue screen of death with a display driver error. Yeah, this is the same thing we got before. We'll click on finish, and yeah, I should say it's shutting down, and it looks like it's frozen again. Oh no, not okay. Now it's actually restarted. Okay, so now it actually says loading your personal settings. So I guess the reason why it actually like restarted setup is because I force shut down the system, which is actually a good precaution to have in place, because if you accidentally like force shut it down during the setup, you would boot up into a corrupted installation if you even booted up at all. So it's good that it just kind of restarted the setup for us. Now it's found a other PCI device. This could be the network card that I have installed. We'll see if it finds a driver for it, and it has not found a driver for it. And yeah, check this out. The icons are not even showing up. Yeah, I'm going to try to like go into display properties here and see if we can, I mean, whatever driver that we're loading here, I mean, yeah, we're in 16 colors. Like, whatever driver that we have is not, not the best driver. Yeah, we're literally stuck at 640 by 40 and 16 colors, which is the display that I selected. I mean, I selected a VGA display 640 by 480. It looks like it's found another PCI device. Now, this machine, as I mentioned before, does not currently have a dedicated, okay, this is just coming up with the same thing. This does not have a dedicated PCI video card. I do actually have one to install from a very generous viewer who did send one out to me. So yeah, it looks like it just keeps finding this other PCI device, and even when I click cancel, it just comes back up. So that's that is annoying. But yes, I do have a video card and a sound card to install in this computer. That is going to be in a future video. So I've opened up the add hardware wizard, and I'm going to see if we can actually get a better display driver loaded here. So it says the following hardware is already installed on your computer, and the system has literally frozen up. I cannot move the mouse. Alright guys, so I'm sure you're able to tell from the last couple of clips that we've experienced a couple of problems here with ReactOS. The system literally completely locked up when I was trying to specify the display driver, and I actually restarted here, and now I can get to this login screen here. I can move the mouse around, but I cannot press Control-Delete on the keyboard, and the keyboard is plugged in. I mean, you can see I can press caps lock and it turns on. I can press num, so this is plugged into the computer. But I literally cannot press Control-Delete to log in. Like nothing else on the keyboard works. And so what I'm thinking is, since we are definitely having a lot of display issues, I want to actually boot back off of the CD and try to choose one of those other VESA display options, because I was able to get that to work in a VM, and I think maybe toning it down, because I mean it was at 800 by 600, 32-bit color. Like, I would like to get at least 32-bit color working, but maybe if we specify VESA 640 by 480 32-bit color, maybe that would work, because I mean this system is just not, I mean, you can see that none of the icons displayed. That was a huge thing. None of the icons in the start menu displayed either, and for some reason we kept getting that like new hardware, like found new hardware wizard coming up every couple of seconds. That obviously has nothing to do with like the display driver, but it is still kind of weird. Like, it just keeps finding this unidentified device, and even when I click cancel out of it, it comes up again. Like, so what we're going to do is actually force shut down the system, because again, I can't actually like log in to then, go to the shutdown option. So we're going to start it back up here. We're going to boot off of the CD, and we're going to see if we can basically do a complete reinstall. And try to specify one of those other options. So this right here is the display, the VESA display 800 by 600 by 32. That is the default display that ReactOS specifies for us. I went ahead and on the install that's on the hard drive right now, I went ahead and toned it all the way down to the first option, which is VGA display 640 by 480 by 4. We're going to go one up. We're going to keep it 640 by 480, but we're going to choose this second option right here. And we're going to accept these settings. Everything else looks fine. I mean, computer, you could install this on an original Xbox if you wanted to. That might actually be a fun video if we could actually do that. So we specified those settings. We are now, basically doing a whole nother clean install. And we'll see if we're able to actually boot into ReactOS once we actually finish copying files here. Now, the thing is, like, if this doesn't work, then there's no way that any of the other VESA settings are going to work. Because the one, like the default one that it selected didn't work. It said that it couldn't load the proper display driver. So this one is the lowest. It's just above the VGA setting, which did work. So if this doesn't work, then we're going to have to reinstall it with the old adapter that actually works. But still, the system was literally like unusable. I mean, I just could not do, because like it just kept, first of all, with all of the like display issues, how things were not displaying correctly. There was a lot of weirder stuff going on, like with the scroll bars and various different things. So it definitely was not the most pleasant user experience. This did work much better in a VM by default. So I would recommend, if you guys want to try out ReactOS, install VMware Player or install VirtualBox and just try it out in a VM. Because doing it on real hardware, well, as you can see, your mileage may vary, and that's absolutely true in this case. And yeah, I was actually trying to figure out a way to like change these display settings without having to reinstall the whole system, but I think you have to do that from within ReactOS, like from the control panel, or through the like add hardware wizard, which is what I was trying to do, but you saw that the system just locked up. So we're just going to boot on the standard ReactOS option, and we're going to see if we get that blue screen of death again, which it's looking, yep, it looks like we do. So the video driver failed to initialize. So yeah, this is definitely not good. We're gonna go ahead and power off the system once again. So this is the F8 option menu for ReactOS, and we can enable VGA mode right here, which, yeah, so no, that's just gonna bring us back into the initial setup and not what we were trying to load into. And yes, I did try to press the R key to like repair the installation. That just took me to a command line, and there were no commands as far as I could tell to actually modify the display settings. So yes, our only option is VGA, because like I said, if this one doesn't work, there's no way any of these other ones are going to work. So our only option here is VGA display 640 by 480, which just, I mean, we can install this again, but I mean, it is just, it was not the most pleasant thing to use. Alright, so we're here in the Add Hardware Wizard. This is, again, after another install of ReactOS. And I'm trying to click on, like, I've already selected Add New Device, and I'm trying to click on Display Adapters. You can see the button down here is actually, well, not a button, so I don't know what the deal is there. I can literally not click on any of these. Can I double click? So yeah, even double clicking on it doesn't do anything, so this button for some reason is literally non-existent. So we can, which is what I chose install the hardware that I manually select from the list, because it's not going to find the hardware automatically, and yeah, it's literally not not working. What I did last time that caused the system to freeze up is I actually chose the VGA adapter from the installed hardware list where you can actually, troubleshoot problems. So yeah, VGA compatible graphics card. You click on next, and then it literally locks up the system right here. Like, I cannot move the mouse anymore. I can't press the Windows key on the keyboard. Nothing actually works. So then what I thought of doing is I actually had a generous viewer out there actually donate a couple of computer parts to me from one of his older systems, and one of those parts was a graphics card. And I had mentioned this earlier on in the video, and I was going to do like a dedicated video of installing a new graphics card in the system, but then I realized that the card he sent me is actually an AGP graphics card. As you can see right here, this is an NVIDIA GeForce 2 MX card. Now, this computer unfortunately does not have an AGP slot. It only has or 4 PCI slots, so this card is not compatible with it. So at the moment, we are at a standstill. I think that, and I actually did look on ReactOS's wiki page, and they did say that a GeForce 2 MX graphics card, there were a couple of them listed there, are compatible with the VESA mode and the VGA mode for ReactOS here. So in theory, this card would actually be able to run ReactOS at a much higher resolution and color mode, but it just doesn't fit in this computer. So maybe on another system someday this card might come in handy. So that is going to go ahead and wrap it up for today's video, guys. Yes, we were somewhat successful. We were able to get ReactOS installed on this computer, but actually using it, well, that's not really going so well, as you can see. So if you guys want to actually try out ReactOS, I would recommend installing it in a virtual machine, because that is what worked for me in that previous video. Obviously, on real hardware, your mileage will vary, as we have just witnessed here. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, definitely be sure to give it a thumbs up. Be sure to get subscribed down below and turn on those channel notifications if you haven't already, to get notified whenever I upload a new video, which I do every single week, actually multiple times per week on this channel. And if you guys have any comments, questions, or video suggestions for me, be sure to leave those down below, as they definitely do help, and I always enjoy reading your guys' feedback to these videos. As always, I just want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.